Okay.
Good morning. Welcome to Northern Lights Spiritual Center. Northern Lights Spiritual Center is a community of people dedicated to using spiritual and practical principles to create lives we want to live. Northern Lights Spiritual Center offers practical and spiritual tools to make positive changes in our lives. We at Northern Lights Spiritual Center acknowledge our presence here on the traditional and unceded lands of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and Salish Coast peoples. These people are still here, and we join with them in how they continue to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. We seek to resist the erasure of Indigenous histories as we work towards honoring and inviting the truth. Please join me for our opening song, In This Very Room, by Ron and Carol Harris. In this very room, there's quite enough love for all the world. And in this very room, there's quite enough joy for all the world. And there's quite enough peace and quite enough power to walk through our every fear. Your spirit, sweet spirit, is in this very room. In this very room.
And now's the time we set aside each Sunday morning for a brief period to center ourselves. So I just invite us to find a comfortable spot, as comfortable as can be. And allow your body to relax, your mind to relax. And I just invite you to release anything that's come before this moment. Any worries, woes, traffic, frustrations of any sort. Because you can always pick them up later if you choose. And so let's begin by taking a nice deep breath in. And release it out. Another deep breath in. And release. And one more deep breath in. And release. And this being the 4th of July, celebrating the freedoms that we have, I would invite us to just focus. What does that word freedom mean to you? And how do you experience freedom? Allowing your mind to be free, to see what comes in, what shows up as freedom for you. Because the freedom for you is not the same as the freedom for each and every person. freedom of choice to choose what we believe, to choose what we believe in. The choice on how we worship. Who we love. And who we vote for. So I invite you just to embrace your freedom and what it means to you. This day and every day. And so however you celebrate or not, it's up to you what you choose to do. So now I just invite you back to the room. Move your toes, your fingers. Open your eyes. And so it is. Our reading today is a couple excerpts from the Center for Spiritual Living Global Vision and excerpts from What We Believe. We envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social conscience in every area of the political, corporate, academic, and social sectors, providing sustainable structures to further the emergence of global consciousness. We envision a world where each and every person has enough food, a home, and a sense of belonging, a world of peace and harmony, enfranchisement and justice. We see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individuality and collectivity, we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. We believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in humankind, and that all people are incarnations of the one Spirit. We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. And we believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. And so it is.
Well, this month's chant, you'll only get to do it twice, I believe, because Michael and I will be gone for the next two Sundays, the 11th and the 4th. So that means that this one is going to have a limited run. So enjoy it while you have a chance at it. So the words are, my vision is pulling me forward. My vision is pulling me toward a world that works for everyone, every day and every way. And then we say that again. My vision is pulling me forward. My vision is pulling me toward a world that works for everyone, every day and every way, every day and every way. My vision is pulling me forward. My vision is pulling me toward a world that works for everyone, every day and every way. My vision is pulling me forward. My vision is pulling me toward a world that works for everyone, every day and every way, every day and every way. Now, second verse, your vision is pulling you forward. Your vision is pulling you toward a world that works for everyone, every day and every way. Your vision is pulling you forward. Your vision is pulling you toward a world that works for everyone, every day and every way, every day and every way. Now our vision is pulling us forward. Our vision is pulling us toward a world that works for everyone, every day and every way. The vision is pulling us forward. Our vision is pulling us toward a world that works for everyone, every day and every way, every day and every way. And that's in my, our, my, me. My vision is pulling me forward. My vision is pulling me toward a world that works for everyone, every day and every way. My vision is pulling me forward. My vision is pulling me toward a world that works for everyone, every day and every way, every day and every way. And as we listen to this, just consider that this is our vision speaking to us, rather than us calling to a God that is distant. Instead, this is the God within calling to us. So take a moment. What would it be if our vision is calling us to be lifted up? If our vision is calling us to shine in light, in radiance, in glory? What if that song, which is from a different tradition, can be transmigrated to our tradition, where we speak about the innermost God and the God of all creation as being one? What does it mean if our vision calls us holy, holy, holy? What does it mean if our vision can envision us as high and lifted up? The title of the talk today is Pulled by Vision, We Hold These Truths. Pulled by vision, we hold these truths. How often do we think of vision as an interior experience rather than as something that is put on us? This morning, I was listening to a morning program with a speaker named Jonathan Capehart. And he speaks from a place that has parallel to my own and yet very different. So he is a black queer man. I am a white queer man. And the program asked us to consider, what does America mean to us? What does Independence Day mean to us? And Jonathan Capehart was speaking with one of his guests was a person named Roy Wood Jr. And Roy Wood Jr. basically said that Independence Day for many years meant we have the freedom to withhold freedom from others. That with the words, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We may hold these ideas, particularly if we're white, and particularly if we're born into the world identified as male. And if we remain unconscious, we may blithely go through life. Come on in. We may blithely come through life believing that these are elements that have been attained. We're alive, so we've got that one. Check. Liberty. Well, we can buy whatever we want, can't we? We can get on Google or we can get on Amazon and click, 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 click. Did any of you ever buy a mask online? You did not. Michael and Reba did. I don't know about Phyllis. Have you ever bought anything online?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, lots.
Yeah, you're free to engage in commerce online. We're free to place our opinions ad nauseum through Facebook. Now, although Michael had a limitation, which affected many of the things associated, because we could not use Facebook through his account because he had been banned. He had the nerve, he had the unmitigated gall to identify that young man,
Kyle
Rittenhouse, as an example of the inequity of justice. That Kyle Rittenhouse, after he had shot people, was picked up by the police and they were like, "Can we give you a snack? Can we give you water?" And that's such a sharp contrast with George Floyd, who was accused of passing a counterfeit bill and then was murdered for it. One of the things that I think is important for us to consider is that Independence Day, for many white people, it's inspirational. It's like, look what a great world we've created. Look what a great world the founding fathers
The slave owners.
were able to envision. Actually, Abigail Adams, who was married to one of the authors of the Declaration of Independence, said, "Dude, you are forgetting women." Now, she probably didn't use the word dude, but she did very specifically say to him, "In this, you have not included women. You know, we happen to be married, and you kind of missed half of it." So the notion that all men are entitled to certain things, even as these words were being uttered, there were other voices that were saying, "But wait a minute." As the founding fathers negotiated, there was all of this conflict because the South, the southern colonies that became the southern states, would not have had the level of representation to which they believed they were entitled because they had a big population. They had a big population of enslaved people. And yet, because they believed, well, I'm managing these enslaved people, I should get some special rights because you, white dude up north that don't have any slaves, you're not having to manage those people. So they navigated and they negotiated this thing called the 3/5 compromise, so that they would count 3/5 of the population of enslaved people. And I'm bringing this forward because if the science of mind, if the Centers for Spiritual Living teachings are about going to truth, then we need to call out the truth of history. I think so often we can blithely go over it and we can simply dismiss the past as done and gone. Michael spoke about features from the global heart vision, that we can have the personal responsibility to create sustainable structures and global consciousness. That a vision where each and every person has enough food, a home, a sense of belonging, a world of peace, harmony, and enfranchisement. Enfranchisement, which means the right to have your word brought forward, your right to have your opinion brought forward, your right to be represented, and justice. One of my little acts of rebellion is during the Pledge of Allegiance, which is communicated every morning in a public school, and I work at the public school. I often drop to my knee at the notion of liberty and justice for all. I actually sometimes feel particularly moved to say liberty and justice for those who can afford it. Liberty and justice for those to whom it's been afforded. Each and every person lives in unity with the divine and a connection with each other. That's the vision. And what I want us to be holding in mind with today's talk is that vision is pulling us forward. We played a song earlier that open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart so I can see you. And I was asking us to listen to that from a place of imagining that that's the spirit within speaking to us. That's the vision within speaking to us. What if we really believe that the Spirit of the living God is within us? That that's its home, that that's its domain. And that this is not something that we are reaching out for like some supplicants. But that we can use this Independence Day to be free of old beliefs, to be free of old thoughts, to be free of old habits, old ways of thinking. That it isn't like, oh, please, God, if only this would happen. Now, I can't speak for you, but there are definitely times that old habit comes back. Oh, please, God, let those people be found that are in that collapsed building in Florida. Oh, please, God, let some people wake up and stop extending disenfranchisement. Stop limiting who can vote because you're so scared you've got nothing to offer that no one's going to vote for you except the rich corporations that are going to sponsor you because you're pushing their agenda. That if you push their agenda, they'll give you more money so that you'll push their agenda further and harder. And that you won't give a rat's patootie about anyone's needs. Oh, infrastructure. Well, infrastructure isn't really... Oh, yeah, water. So much of this country does not have access to clean, healthy water. Again, on Jonathan Capehart's show this morning, there was a scientist who came forward and said, you know, we name hurricanes, we name them, we brand them because they are serious. A hurricane's coming, you're not like, oh, it's that storm thing. It's like it's a big deal. We name them because they're a big deal. What she and another group of scientists are saying is we should be naming these heat spells. She described how, in fact, heat kills more people than any other weather incident.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have you ever heard that?
No.
I never heard that. The notion has been, well, hurricanes are these huge, deadly things. And I'm not saying that they aren't huge, deadly things. And I'm not saying that tornadoes aren't huge, deadly things. But in terms of the number of people killed, it's heat. And it's not getting better. And we have a full half of the country of the United States. Justice and liberty and freedom for all. Other elements guiding and letting us move forward and challenging those beliefs that we carry are, we believe in the incarnation of spirit in humankind, and that all beings are incarnations of the one spirit. What does that mean if you are the place where God is showing up? What does it mean if you wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and you are holding in mind, this is God looking back at me? Doesn't that change it a little bit than saying, God, I really don't like your hair this morning? God, those wrinkles are just getting worse. God, do I have no makeup to do what I wanted to do? What does it mean if we look in the mirror and say, God, you are present through me. I am here to be a presence on this planet. I am here to be something. And that something is what we are free to choose. That something is that independence that can guide us. And I'm not saying that it's like, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to establish voting rights for every African American in my district. It may mean that when I engage with the children in my school, that I am truly looking at them as the presence of the living divine. That I look at them and see them from a place of awe, from a place of inspiration. That this is how the divine woke up today and shows itself to me. That this parent who is saying, you haven't really done enough on my kid's report. That instead of being annoyed by it, it's like, how do I turn myself? Does anybody ever have someone that annoys them? How is it that I turn my attention and my appreciation that I can hear the divine? And conversely, how do I call forward greater justice? My kid is getting C's and they should be getting A's. It's so lovely that you want to see your child succeed with all A's. It's just showing what a place of generosity you are coming from, that you want your child to have that experience in everything. And what would it be like if your child were to learn that the grade that they're getting might have something to do with the work that they're putting into it as much as the intelligence that they have to do their work. And perhaps the work that they're putting into it is more important. How can you call them when they are feeling discouraged that the solution is to have them do less? The solution is to make it easier, that this is a call to them to be more, to stand up. That might be how I could call others out, to ask them to really look at what they're seeking for their children. We believe the ultimate goal of life to be complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. A caveat that I would say with this one is, it might be the emancipation, but it's emancipation by what we do. Independence was not just gained by those people sitting around tables and signing their names. It was more than that. They signed their names as a pledge. They signed their name as a pledge to stand up and take action. What actions will we sign up for? What actions will we take? We believe in the unity of all life, that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. So three pieces that I want us to leave with today. I want us to remember oneness, I want us to remember abundance, and I want us to remember ourselves as creators for this Independence Day. Three things: oneness, abundance, and our identity as creators. Sherry Evans, in the book The Roads to Truth, In Search of New Thought's Roots, wrote, "Unity is the song of life. It is the grand theme underlying the rich variations that exist throughout the cosmos. Whatever we see, whatever we experience, is..." When I describe that I can respond to my day's work by looking at the children in the school where I am as expressions of the divine, where I see families as expression of the divine, even when I don't understand the decisions that they're making. How is it that you can arrange for your life that your child only gets to school one time out of every week? And how is it that you can be frustrated with the school that your child isn't learning when your child isn't exposed to the instruction? How do I navigate that own kind of like boom reaction? You're not really doing your job. That's kind of like my, it's like, as a parent, get their little butts to school. Isn't that your job? It's not my job to get your kid's butt to school. But as long as I skip from that me and them place, instead of seeing their oneness, it's like, well, what are the obstacles? What's getting in the way? And how do I be sensitive and be conscious to that rather than being in judgment of that? Closer to home, in terms of my amount of daily agita. That was the word that my ex-wife's grandmother, she was from Italy. Agita. It's, that sense of agitation. And it's such a great, it's such a great thing. Agita. Does anybody ever have agita?
From time to time,
I
yes.
think agita is a very universal human experience.
Agita.
I have such agita about the current times and circumstances in this country, that a whole portion of the country cannot get themselves to believe that President Biden is President Biden. That a whole portion of the country believes that he stole the election. there's no evidence for this. But evidence doesn't have to happen. All it has to be is this story. It was stolen. And it's the biggest stealing that would ever happen. It's the biggest lie that ever happened. I have a lot of agita about that fact, that the presentation of facts are like in a Teflon coated pan. The facts just are, they just will not stick. Agita, the whole notion that, well, this is just an alternative fact. You know, when I was little, I wasn't taught that when I took that ice cream, I took that ice cream. It's not an alternative fact that the ice cream disappeared by some creature, by some alternative creature that took the, where did all the ice cream go? Well, it was that creature. It was the ice cream creature. And the ice cream creature took the ice cream. And that's a beautiful alternative fact, but it's just crazy. There was no ice cream creature. There was me. And I took the ice cream because my blood sugar felt low, and that was how I wanted to manage it. I wanted to manage it with that rather than orange juice. Because I didn't really like orange juice all that much, but that was what was around. That was what was made available to me. You can have ice cream. You can have orange juice to fix this. It's like, oh, I want ice cream to fix this. Thank you. But, you know, it wasn't like automatic that I came forward and said it was, you know, it was me. Maybe Nana ate the extra ice cream. Nana was my grandmother, and she lived with us. Nana loved ice cream. So easy to get it on Nana. You know, and Nana was not going to argue with somebody. She's like, well, maybe I did eat it. Yes, score. Nana's accused of the ice cream eating, not me. How do we come back and remember the oneness in the face of things that just seem crazy? Well, part of it is just to keep looking through the eyes of oneness rather than keep looking through the eyes of separation. I'm not saying that that's easy, but I'm saying that that's a starting place. That it becomes a choice for being from a space of love rather than a space of agita. The second notion I want to play with is the notion of abundance. How many of us were taught to believe in scarcity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That scarcity was the fundamental nature
There's not enough money.
of reality. I had a particular dose of this because both of my parents were raised during the Great Depression. And although my mother and her family, my grandmother was a nurse, so she always had work. It didn't matter when, where, or how. She always had work because, oh, yes, people have needed nurses. It wasn't, you know, no matter how little there was, people needed nursing. People needed that. So she always had a job. I mean, I think I've told before, but I'm just going to take a little moment here. My grandmother was so embodied freedom because the first time she retired at the age of 65, the first time she retired, they did the retirement party, and she worked in a steel mill. And she helped people when they were there and accidents would happen. And steel mills did have accidents. So she was doing stuff all the time. And that included even delivering a baby. Because the doctor couldn't get there on time. Nana delivered the baby in the bathroom. That was the story for years. Nana delivering a baby in the bathroom. Because there probably weren't a whole bunch of places at the steel mill for delivering babies. So she retired at 65, and then she went back to another place, and she put on her application that she was 55. Oh. So Nana, construction alternative facts about her date of birth. And she worked for 10 more years, and then she had her second retirement party when she was 65. And when she was 65 for this place, you could all guess, you could all do the math, she was actually 75.
Huh.
And then after she retired from there, she had come to live with my family because my father, his business went bankrupt. And his business went bankrupt because he was in a partnership, and the partner had signed certain agreements that he had never disclosed to my dad.
Ooh.
But the whole thing about a partnership is that you're both equally responsible for everything that goes on in the partnership. So when his partner violated his contract, my dad unknowingly was a co-violator of the contract. And so the place where they had both formerly worked sued my dad. And because my dad hired an attorney that wasn't particularly bright, when the company kept sending claims, my dad's attorney ignored them. So when it came time in court, my dad's like, but that's not true. And the judge was like, well, doesn't really matter if it's true or not. We never heard that it wasn't true. And now it's too late to say that it's not true.
Oh,
And back in those days, because my mom was married to my dad, my mom had set aside a savings thing from the time that she worked. And my mom, like her mom, was pretty unusual. She went to work and she saved, like a little squirrel that's squirreling away nuts. Mm-hmm. She just saved every penny that she earned, put it aside into savings. But because my mom and my dad were married, all of her savings were really all of their savings, and so when they bankrupted them, all of her savings went to the claimant for the bankruptcy. But my Nana, my mom's mom, was cagey. And she had kept receipts from everything she had ever bought. Everything. She had a steel box filled with all kinds of things. And my mom learned this later on because I guess my sister went through like 40 boxes filled with papers and receipts. So when the sheriff came to the house to pick up those shoes, Nana could pull out a receipt and say, you're not touching those. They were not bought by the bankrupt dude. They were not bought by the bankrupt dude's wife. They were bought by me. And you cannot take them.
they were going to take her shoes?
They were going to take shoes like from my sister and me.
Oh.
They were going to go in and they were going to take our stuff and they were going to sell it, to pay off the debt from the bankruptcy. And I'm just saying, Nana was cagey. She was able to pull it. Nope, can't do that. Nope. You want to take that sofa? Nope, that's my sofa. You want to take that desk? Nope, it's my desk. I tell this story because at a time when there was seeming lack, my grandmother was able to create abundance. She was able to create a story for the sheriff that came to the house that said, you're not going to be taking that. We're not going to have that happen. And I say this too because I didn't remember that story of abundance when I thought back into my history around having my dad go bankrupt. I used to tell a story about how my dad's business purchased a typewriter and a tape recorder. And for years, I would receive the typewriter for Christmas, and then I would receive the tape recorder for my birthday. But my sister would receive the tape recorder for Christmas, and she would receive the typewriter for her birthday. So the same gift was being recycled. And my way of coping with all of this was to operate from a belief in scarcity. Not to name something, not to ask for something. It affects me. There are ways that it's come through unconsciously. It's like, well, what do you want for dinner? It's hard for me to name what I want because there was a fear that I would never get it. That's how powerful stories of scarcity can impact us. But again, I was lucky because my sister wasn't going to buy that story. She actually went and bought her own tape recorder because she's like, well, neither one of us have the tape recorder and I want a tape recorder. So she went and got her own tape recorder. I learned abundance from my sister, my younger sister. It wasn't me leading there, it was my sister leading there. When she was little, we were at an amusement park, and my dad had won something, and I'm like trying to decide what I want. And my sister was, I want the purple pussycat. So it was my pick, but Lisa knew what she wanted. Lisa could name it, could identify it, put her hands on it, and name it. Elisa lives from a place of abundance consciousness. So who are the people in our lives who can remind us of abundance? Who can remind us that we live on an earth, that we live on a planet that is so richly endowed? How do we turn our attention there rather than on, oh dang, I wish I could have this. I wish I could have that. And what I may be saying may mean nothing. Everybody else may have their abundance, their AQ, their abundance quotient completely at high superior levels. Or not. And if not, the trick is how do we own a new belief? How do we take the freedom to say, I let go of that scarcity thinking? And that scarcity thinking can just be that notion of catching ourselves. Oh my gosh, I'm operating from a belief system in scarcity. I mean, let's be honest. Isn't that what the Republican Party is doing today? Mm-hmm. I said, I named a particular thing, but it's like, we can't spend the money on infrastructure because it's so much money. Well, that's the whole thing and why we have water systems that are just cruddy. Because we've just kicked this thing down the pipe. We can't spend the money now. Can't spend the money now. Okay, you can't spend the money. You're drinking lead. Lead is not really healthy for folk. Lead is not one of those, essential daily nutrients. Did you get your appropriate quotient of lead today? Let's not let ourselves get sucked into that selling point. Because let's be honest, the other side of it is corporations which run so much of things love to have us operate from that notion of scarcity. Oh, if we take away from corporations, we won't have any jobs anymore. Let's be honest. Amazon is having a heck of a time finding workers because their workers aren't all that well treated. And they have to come to the conclusion that corporation has to open up to the fact that, oh, I guess we better stop treating our people so crappily because we won't have any people working for us. And our amazing growth as a business cannot continue to happen unless we start operating from a place of abundance rather than a place of scarcity. Ernest Holmes wrote, in our ignorance of the truth, we have misused the highest power we possess. And so great is this power, so complete is our freedom in it, so absolute the domain of law through it, that the misuse of this power has brought upon us the very conditions from which we suffer. So when we put our fundamental faith in scarcity, that's what the law is like. I can show you that. You believe in that? You want that? Sure. I'll give it to you. I'll prove you are so able to command the law. A friend of mine, through practitioner studies and through ministerial school, Michael Alk he identified that he was a master in that use of the law. That he was scared, and so his fears were just manifest in abundance. And he named it and he called it out. When we've got an abundance of something, we can look at the place, at the belief from which it is springing. Because the power of the law is going to act upon our belief. So, what would it cost us to believe in abundance? What would it cost us to freely choose abundance? And then the last point I want to make in terms of this Independence Day is ourselves, identifying ourselves as creators. And this follows that notion, that use of the law, because it's like what we believe comes into form. I can't get anything. Well, yeah, I didn't get anything. My sister manifested the tape recorder because she's like, I'm going to get it myself. She decided, she created the circumstances so that she won a tape recorder. You know, I was a little disturbed because the way that she won it is that we were entering this walkathon. And, and I must have gone to, I went to 300 houses. Hi, my name is Vaughan Amaré, and I'm going to be going on this walk to cure hunger. And it's a 22-mile walk, and I'm looking for sponsors to pay some sort of money for every mile that I walk. So if you pay 10 cents a mile, then you would pay $22.20 for this. I must have gone to 300 houses. I mean, I had form upon form of pledges. Form upon form. I mean, I entered with probably like 20 things on each page. I probably had 200, I had 10 pages of pledges because I had gone to every house in the neighborhood. And just as an aside, most of these pledges were like 5-10 cents a mile. My sister, again, got this abundance consciousness thing. She never got out. My dad went to one of his associates and said, my daughter's walking in the walk and she needs a sponsor to be able to go on the walk. Vaughan, he's gotten his sponsors. Person's like, oh, I'll give her $75 a mile. Because she's a little girl and she'll never make it. She did that full 22-mile walk. She did that full 22-mile walk. I had my 200 sponsors, and I was like at $30 per mile with my 200 sponsors. She had one sponsor, $75.
And he paid off.
Oh yeah, he paid it off because he's like, well, fool me once. He's like, I didn't think that little girl would ever be able to make that 22-mile walk. I've been shown otherwise. Creativity can happen in ways that we don't imagine and in ways that we don't expect. Howard Thurman wrote, there is no alternative to the insistence that we cannot escape from personal responsibility for the social order in which we live. I'll say that again. There is no alternative to the insistence that we cannot escape from the personal responsibility for the social order in which we live. This means there must be participation in the social process, and that quite specifically. Thich Nhat Hanh, a Buddhist monk, wrote, "Aware of economic, political, and social realities around the world, as well as our interrelationship with the ecosystem, we are determined to behave responsibly as consumers and as citizens." As creators, we are called to both practice and act. Now, I did a lot of practice in that example, and I did the same action my sister did, but I made nowhere near the money that she did because my dad could identify, my daughter doesn't have any sponsors yet. Vaughan, he's got $35 worth of sponsors for every mile he's doing. Oh, that just doesn't sound fair, Robbie will make the walk because he'll drag his bloody feet back through there. But Lisa will never do that. So I'm happy to support Lisa. But Lisa never questioned whether she would complete the walk or not. Neither one of us ever questioned whether we would complete the walk. We both had blisters. I had a particularly bad sunburn. How do we take responsibility? How do we take responsibility and create deliberately? How do we choose to engage? How do we choose to think and speak and interact? Those are the choices that we have. How do I hold myself to tell the story that Independence Day was inspirational? It's aspirational. This is what's possible, but it is not a done deal. We identify life, liberty, enfranchisement. And when we are seeing disenfranchisement, an act of creation is to name that. It's not to simply say, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. It's to call it out. And it may be uncomfortable. I don't remember if I've spoken about the notion of calling in and calling out. Calling in is having a private conversation with someone and saying, when I heard you say that, if you've ever been with somebody and they will say something, will make an outrageous comment about black people, and because you look very white, they're like, oh, I'm safe saying this, and you're like, hey, dude, that's, you're talking about my son. Oops. And that calling in is that, that private conversation and said, I want you to know that when I hear that, I'm uncomfortable. I want you to know that when you say jokes like that, when I hear jokes about Jewish people, that I speak up about it, that it's not like funny. My dad was very, at the time of his bankruptcy, a Jewish owner had filed the bankruptcy. So my dad was really into Jewish jokes for a while because he was really bitter. And his bitterness was, he translated it to many Jewish people. So he told just stupid Jewish jokes. And he doesn't do it anymore because he had enough therapy and he recognized, oh, that's really not true. It was one person. And it was one person who was claiming his right. His contract had been violated. And he was losing money to that partnership. And that partner had done him wrong. So that calling in or calling out, you're in a bigger group. And, somebody says something and it's like, wait a second. When I hear that and you make this note, when you make this claim, one of the things that I've been doing about calling in or calling out, someone will address an audience. Ladies and gentlemen, hey, would you please refer to us as gentlefolk or welcome everyone? Because when you identify ladies and gentlemen, you are perpetrating the notion that people only come in one of two ways, as ladies or gentlemen. And there's more possibilities than that. And if you don't understand that, look it up. It's not mine to teach it to you. But it is mine to say that I'm not identifying myself as a gentleman. And I'm not identifying myself as a lady. I'm identifying myself as a person. Now, we may not be able to call out because there's fear of reprisal. There's fear of retribution. And calling something out can be a revolutionary act. And it can be an illumination. Years ago, I always felt a little uncomfortable with the notion of ladies and gentlemen. Or I pronounce you husband and wife. For me, I like the idea of being a spouse. A spouse captures the whole idea. There are ways that is bigger than what husband captures. Now, Michael might be perfectly happy with husband. But my preference is spouse. It's not like I dislike husband, but I'm more than husband. He lavishes and cares for me. In a traditional relationship, it's much more the way a husband cares for a wife. But I don't really feel like his wife. That was one of the things when we were getting married in Oregon. I was like, who's going to pick what? Because the forms only allowed for husband and wife. Was he going to be the husband? Was I going to be the husband? Who was going to be the husband? Who was going to be the wife? If you're just spouse, you don't have to worry with that stuff. So gender nonconformity, recognizing a non-binary world, recognizing a world that is more than what we see, that you have a black son. Yes, he's half white, but when people look at him, it's not like they say, oh, well, here's the white part of you.
It's true.
And he hasn't moved through the world with the same ease that a white son would have.
No.
He has carried a greater weight on his shoulders. And you watch that and you get to be inspired by the strength of his shoulders, by the strength of his carrying. And in that inspiration, you get to lean into the power that this day can represent. We are creators. We are operators of abundance. We are the embodiment of unity. Unity, abundance, creators. So, as a call to action, we have the responsibility, opportunity, and authority to create a world that works for all, where all have the opportunity to thrive. And I say all because I want us to think beyond simply other people. We live on a planet with birds. We live on a planet with animals. We live on a planet with fish and lizards and all kinds of things. And for so many years, human beings have operated as if, okay, we've been crowned the princess, the prince, the king, the queen of all that we see. And as kings of all that we see, we have treated everything not that well. Our sense of dominion has misplaced and enabled us to mistreat this planet rather than to serve as caretakers, rather than as lovers, rather than as upholders. On this day, we also get to unshade the truth. The founding fathers were really looking out for themselves. They were perpetrating what landed white dudes could receive. And even though one of them had a wife that said, "Don't forget the women," he dismissed her. He dismissed her insofar as what the laws were that got written dismissed her call to him. Dude, you've identified it, all men are created equal. Who do you think I am? I'm your spouse, and you're forgetting me when you leave the house and you go out there. Unshading today is to recognize what so many African Americans experience. And it's like, okay, really, Jonathan K. Park's aunt said it's really a day for barbecues and for fireworks. It really isn't a day to celebrate freedom because me and many in my family have yet to experience that freedom. It's incumbent upon me as a white person to recognize the places where white supremacy and white fragility have failed to act, have failed to stand up and say, look at the advantages that I have heaped upon myself. You know, I could get into a whole other talk about this. But the notion, that pick yourself up by your bootstraps is a very white man notion. Because it doesn't look at all of the stomping on the fingers of others. In Jewish tradition, which inspired the New Testament, slavery was there. But the notion of slavery was that it ended, and when it ended, you went away with you took away something. You didn't just leave and have nothing.
And your children were not slaves.
And your children were not slaves. But Christianity was like, screw that. We're not going to listen to anything that the Jewish people have to offer, even though, oh, that's right, Jesus was a Jew. And we're going to perpetrate hatred against Jews because we're going to have the Jews all saying, crucify him, crucify him. Independence Day is that we can freely own where it is that we've engaged and gotten caught up in perpetration of injustice. On this sacred day, we get to be inclusive in our culture and our spiritual engagement. We get to create safe mental, spiritual, and physical spaces filled with the excitement of human interaction based on authentic and mutual love and respect. So, I celebrate this day of love and respect. That's the affirmation, easy enough. I celebrate this day of mutual love and respect. I celebrate this day of mutual love and respect. And one more time. I celebrate this day of mutual love and respect. And so it is.
So, thank you, Reverend Vaughan, for your exuberance and passion, and letting me know that you prefer spouse. It's always nice to,
To know the,
to be told about it. I had to tell somebody one time because they made this statement, and I said, well, why did you say something? I am not a mind reader, because I am not. I'm glad I'm not either, because there's a lot of minds I don't want to read. So if we want something from someone else, we probably need to express that, and I'm as guilty as anyone else. So, and also about the reminder of the oneness, the abundance, and that we are indeed creators in our lives each and every day. We create, whether we believe it or not. And so I just want to thank everybody for joining today on Facebook or Zoom. And just to let you know that the next 2 Sundays, the 11th and the 18th, it will be a Zoom service only. Reverend Pam is going to be she's going to be Zooming from home. So we will be out of town, and you will be sent the Zoom link. And so I just want to hope you, I want to say zoom in, but I guess that's a good a good word. Zoom in and join Reverend Pamela for the next 2 Sundays. And so I just give thanks for this day. I give thanks for Reverend Vaughan and the words spoken and the words received. Because sometimes the words that are spoken are received differently, but they're received however we need to receive them. And so I give thanks for this place called Northern Light Spiritual Center, for this sacred ground, this sacred space, and the spaces that we create each and every day for ourselves and for others. Safe spaces for people to be who they are. And so I give thanks for this day of recognizing freedom. And I pray that these truths that are supposed to be self-evident, that liberty and justice are for all, I pray that this is the truth and that this becomes the truth right now. And so I give thanks, I let it go, and I let it be. And so it is.
So it is.